We gather as a community. Are we working? We gather as a community in mourning to honor the memory of June Cooper, daughter of Catherine and Jonathan Cooper, sister to Iris, granddaughter to Patricia and Peter Cooper, and Jane and Barry Guerin, niece to Craig and Ronnie Guerin, and Stacia Bowley and Will Fiveash, and cousin to Nicholas Alexander, Lillian, Phoebe, and Elliot. A loving soul and kind friend, June's face illuminated the world's immense and fragile beauty. With presence and compassion, we grieve with her family and support them through this tremendous loss. With offerings from 3 faith traditions, as well as June's school community at Pine Cobble, we dedicate our presence today to June as we recognize the sacred task that is now upon her family and upon this community to honor her precious light and allow it to shine into our world in her absence. The loss of a child has no name. A partner who loses their spouse is a widow or widower. A child who loses their parents is an orphan. But no words are fit to describe the death of one's child. There are only hints, as in the poet Rumi's words. Every part of you has a secret language. Your hands and your feet say what you have done. Every need brings what is needed. Pain bears its cure like a child. I'm Rabbi Jara Greenfield. I introduce Abbot Paul of the Tendai Buddhist Institute to lead us in a responsive reading.
Good afternoon. We would like to recite the Litany of Remembrances, which is printed in the handout. And I'll begin it, and then I would ask the people come in with "We remember them" at the appropriate time. Can anyone hear me okay, by the way? Thank you for letting me know. So I'll use the big voice. Those who live no more are still with us in our thoughts and words. Who they were and what they did will always be a part of us and what we have become at this moment. At the rising of the sun and at its going down, we remember them. At the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. At the rustling of the leaves and the beauty of autumn, we remember them. At the in the darkness of the evening and the brightness of the dawn, we remember them. On the dark days and the brilliant day, we remember them. At the beginning of the day and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joy we are aching to share, we remember them. When we have decisions that are difficult to make, we remember them. When we have achievements that are based on theirs, we remember them. For as long as we live, they too will live. They are a part of us and always we remember them. A few preliminaries. When a person dies in the Japanese Buddhist traditions, they receive a posthumous name. This name accompanies their spirit. And June's posthumous name was Joyous or Joyful Illumination. The profound sadness that overwhelms us when we understand the impermanent nature of all phenomena opens us up to the world around us. We open our hearts and we begin to notice our fellow beings. As I said, this is a Japanese Buddhist tradition, and all across Japan, there are small stone statues, maybe this tall, that are called jizo, that are found along travel routes and temples. And most Japanese affectionately refer to the Buddhist deity as Ojizo-san. Jizo is a bodhisattva, in Japanese a bosatsu, one who achieves enlightenment but postpones Buddhahood until all sentient beings can be liberated from suffering. Jizo is often translated as womb of the earth, for Ji means earth and Zo means womb, although we often translate this as earth treasury. I'm not being didactic here, I'm just giving you a little bit of background. Jizo embodies supreme spiritual optimism, compassion, and universal salvation, all hallmarks of Mahayana Buddhism. According to Buddhist belief, Jizo statues are depicted as Buddhist clergy, monks and nuns, who guide and protect all living beings. Beloved since ancient times, these serene figures are said to offer compassion and assistance to those who truly need it, especially children. The prayer to Jizo is as follows. Homage to Jizo Bosatsu, protector of those crossing over, guardian of children who have died, comforter of loved ones struggling on the path of crossing over from this life, and those who grieve their deaths. Homage to your great vow, and to the fearlessness you illuminate and inspire in those who grieve, and deep gratitude for the balm and healing your fierce love illuminates in this world of striving, of love and suffering. Svaha, so be it. Amen. From Thich Nhat Hanh, he writes, if you are peaceful, if you are calm, if you are happy, if you can smile, then the people in your family will smile, and in your society, they will smile. And they can enjoy the peace radiating from you. And so we must see that Jizo Bosatsu is not merely a legendary personality. Jizo is in you. It's in me and in many others, everywhere. We only need to train ourselves to become a Jizo. Then our hand will be able to reach into the places of the most terrible suffering, darkness, and oppression, unquote. We are sad at the loss of June from our lives. At times we may feel deep emptiness. Let us allow a transformation of those feelings into gratitude that Kisho, joyful illumination, shared with us. She smiled upon us, radiating peace to each of us. She brought the spirit of Jizo Bosatsu to each of us. For that, we will all be eternally grateful. Thank you, June, for that gift was your life. And the joyful illumination that you radiated. And I'd like to introduce Bob Weger, Pastor Bob Weger.
Thank you, Paul. I'm going to be reading Psalm 121 in the English, and Rabbi Jera will also read it for us, recite it for us in the Hebrew. Psalm 121. I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. Behold, he who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade on your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time forth and forevermore.
שיר למעלות. אשא עיניי אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי. עזרי מעם אדוני עושה שמים וארץ. אל ייתן למות רגליך, אל ינום שומרך. הנה לא ינום ולא ישן שומר ישראל. אדוני שומרך, אדוני צילך על יד ימינך. יומם השמש לא יככה וירח בלילה. אדוני ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך. אדוני ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד עולם.
A few brief words on this Psalm 121. The psalm was sung by travelers on their pilgrimage to the city of God, to their spiritual home. So it is fitting that we hear it sung and meditate on it for a moment as we remember and celebrate the life of June and mourn her passing together as she has completed her pilgrimage. As I recently heard Jonathan so eloquently say, and I hate to steal your thunder if you're going to say this again later, but June lived a complete life. Perhaps we could say she completed her all too brief pilgrimage on this earth and has made her way to her eternal home. Psalm 121, which we just heard read, begins, I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. Since I've lived in southern Vermont, although now we've moved to Maine, but since I've lived in southern Vermont, this verse, I lift my eyes to the hills, where does my help come from, has held a close place in my heart. And perhaps June, as she passed from this life to the next, she lifted her eyes to the hills and said something like, where does my help come from? Or more simply said, help. This psalm assures us that her help was swift and sure. The Lord God who made heaven and earth was her help. He made and sustained everything, everywhere, and yet cares for June enough to be her help, to be her keeper. As the psalm says, to keep her from harm, to keep her from evil, to keep her life, to keep her going out and her coming in from this time forth and forevermore. June has been brought safely into eternity, and the Lord himself is her help. Now the question that we all may be asking is, why didn't he help her here on earth? Why didn't the Lord help keep her life here? Why was she taken from us? And why? Just why? There are no easy answers to these questions, and yet they must be asked. These questions that are often better screamed and shouted in the middle of the night. We have individual rage at the injustice. We have collective rage at the unfairness, the wrongness of a beautiful life cut short. But the same Lord, who is June's help, is also our help in our time of grief, in our time of loss, and yes, even our time of outrage. And let me be clear, not outrage at humans or institutions on this earth, because this tragedy we may never have clear answers, but we know that June's pilgrimage on earth, she was brought home to eternity. And yet we still have rage in our minds and hearts at times of the unfairness of it all, the shock of it all. And yet, at the moment of Jesus' death, Jesus himself cried in shock and outrage, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Have any of us here uttered something similar these past 2 weeks. We too cry the same thing in our own way. Why have you forsaken me? But if you know the story of Jesus, that wasn't the end of his story. His cry, my God, why have you forsaken me?" was in fact the first line of Psalm 22, which later goes on to say, "He has not despised or scorned the suffering of his afflicted one. He has not hidden his face from him, but has listened to his cry for help." So the Lord does indeed listen to our cries for help. And so family and friends and all who are feeling forsaken in this time of grief and loss, I urge you to remember that the same Lord who was June's help from this life into the next is our help in our suffering and loss. We may feel indeed forsaken, but he hears our cries. He weeps with us. Jesus wept when his friend dies, and I am sure he weeps at all the losses in this world, and I am sure he has wept over the loss of June from this world to the next. The Lord was so moved by the brokenness and injustice in this world that he came to be our help through it all and undo the evil in this world, and now his Spirit is among us as our helper and our comforter. The Lord promises help here and now through all sorts of heavenly and earthly means, but he also gives us the hope of the eternal resurrection. Just as Jesus' terrible death was a prelude to his glorious resurrection, so too we are offered the hope of resurrection. And as someone once said, the hope of resurrection means that one day everything sad will come untrue. Although we must endure the loss of June in our lives, we have help and hope. We are assured the Lord was and is her help from this life into the next. And here in southern Vermont, we can lift up our eyes to the hills and ask, where does my help come from? Our help comes from the Lord, who offers us comfort in our loss and gives us peace in our grief. So to conclude, Jonathan, Kate, and Iris, and all who gather here, I leave you with these words of blessing and peace from the Lord. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Amen.
For centuries, people of Jewish and Christian faith have turned to the ancient poetry of Psalms in times of crisis. The voice of the psalmist, often regarded as that of King David, links us back through the generations, giving us the sense that another human being who lived ages before we did knew the depth of our suffering, reached out to the same protective divine source we ourselves seek, and received what they needed to survive their torment and restore their sense of wholeness. Psalm 23, which we'll hear momentarily, is a spiritual journey through darkness that ushers the aching soul to a place of repose and triumph. It honors our inherent dignity during moments when we're most vulnerable to believing that our suffering is insurmountable and we will be destroyed. Through these ancient words, we take refuge in the house of God, trusting in something far greater than our solitude to guard and protect us when we most need it. This is the meaning that I invite us to hear today. Whether your faith is in God or in the power of human connection, there is a gift of internal strength and peace to be discovered in the wake of this tremendous loss. When we access that wisdom, it becomes our obligation to extend ourselves in the light of that divine protection to the ones who walk through the valley of the shadow of death, that they need not fear evil. Connection and community are essential to our emotional, physical, and spiritual well-being. Kate, Jonathan, and Iris, on your journey, fear not. We will not let the abyss of losing June consume you. We will remind you when the darkness is too deep that her spirit is shining through you, and that her precious light, bright and sensitive, can be seen in the wild flowers, bees, horses, grass, and water, not that you would forget this. We will celebrate her life. We will listen. We will be with you when you need us, and we will give you space when you need time away from the world. Consider our gathering here in the spirit of this psalm as a walkway between worlds, a bridge upon which you pass at your own pace from the numbness of sorrow toward a renewed acceptance of life. We turn to the reading of Psalm 23 in English.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
There's a saying attributed to the book of the Zohar, a book of Jewish mysticism, that there are halls in heaven that open only to the voice of song. In light of that teaching, I offer Psalm 23 in the melodic version in Hebrew. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, binot asher yarbitzeni, al mei menuchot yanahaleni. Nafshi yeshovev, nafshi yeshovev, yancheni b'maglei tzedek leman shemo. Gam ki elech begeit salmavet, lo irara ki ata imadi, shivtecha umishantecha, shivtecha umishantecha, hema yanachmoni. Taroch lefanai shulchan, taroch lefanai shulchan, taroch lefanai shulchan, neged sorerai, dishanta vashemen roshi, dishanta vashemen roshi, dishanta Vashemen roshi, kosi revaya, ach tov vachesed, yirdefuni, kol yemei chayai, Veshavti beveit Adonai, Veshavti beveit Hashem, leorech yamim, yadarai rai rai rai, yadarai rai rai rai, yadarai rai 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 rai, yadarai rai rai rai, yadarai rai rai rai. Yai, 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 yai. Yadarai, rai, rai, rai. Yadarai, rai, rai, rai. Yadarai, rai, 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 rai. Yadarai, rai, rai, rai. Yadarai, rai, rai, rai. Yai, 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 yai. I'd like to invite Jonathan forward to offer some words.
There is glitter up here, and June would like that. Thank you all for being here, and I would like to begin with an excerpt from a Robert Frost poem called Home Burial. He saw her from the bottom of the stairs before she saw him. She was starting down, looking back over her shoulder at some fear. She took a doubtful step and then undid it, to raise herself and look again. He spoke, advancing toward her. What is it you see from up there always? For I want to know. She turned and sank upon her skirts at that, and her face changed from terrified to dull. He said to gain time, what is it you see? Mounting stairs until she cowered under him. I will find out now. You must tell me, dear. She, in her place, refused him any help with the least stiffening of her neck and silence. She let him look, sure that he wouldn't see, the blind creature. And a while he didn't see. But at last he murmured, oh, and again, oh. What is it? What, she said. Just that I see. You don't, she challenged. Tell me what it is. The wonder is I didn't see it once. I never noticed it from here before. I must be wanted to it. That's the reason. The little graveyard where my people are. So small the window frames the whole of it. Not so much larger than a bedroom, is it? There are 3 stones of slate and 1 of marble, broad-shouldered little slabs there in the sunlight on the side hill. We haven't to mind those, but I understand. It is not the stones, but the child's mound. Don't, she cried. Last week, in preparing a remembrance of June for her funeral, I thought about Adam and Eve in a new way. The world's first parents who became the world's first parents to lose a child. I realized then that ours is a very old pain, a pain as old as the first family that could have felt it. But that poem, Home Burial, works through what I wish Scripture spent more time on. What the bond must endure as a marriage confronts the same terrible things with their own eyes, with their own ideas, and their own profound losses. A nightmare that they dream separately, but live together. And here I pause to say something that June was always very happy to hear. I love you, Kate, and we love each other. And I love my mother and father, and they love me. And I love Iris, and she loves me. Shortly after June died, Kate and I realized something that is central to her story. As Bob said, June Violet Cooper lived a complete life. Losses like these bring with them the profound sense of something unfinished, but to know, do, and see everything is beyond the scope of all lifetimes. She had just begun to enjoy the comic strip Calvin and Hobbes, and although she never made it far enough to read about Hamster Huey and the Gooey Kablooey, she didn't have to read all of them to know that she liked them. June never got to ride at a full gallop and jump an oxer in the ring, but she didn't need to master the sport to know of her abiding love for horses and respect for horsemanship. She never made it to district or to state swim meets, but June did have the chance to set a personal best and then set a new best time later on. She had the chance to earn a blue ribbon in a relay event, and that ribbon brought a sense of pride and happiness and completion. As I said last week, June left her canvas filled with color, filled with love, filled with family, filled with Iris, filled with wild strawberries in the grass and pears off the tree and tomatoes off the vine and chives right out of the ground, filled with mountains and oceans and beaches and cities, Frog and Toad and Harry Potter and Roald Dahl, raw milk from Miss Crystal and Mama's black bean soup, and hot dogs from the Arlington Dairy Bar, and nachos from Harvest, and bunk beds and shared beds, and vanilla ice cream and mint chocolate chip ice cream, and Taylor Swift, and sleepovers, and outfits and hats and fireflies and tire swings. Quiet moments reading in her own room, and quiet moments thinking on the couch, and quiet moments dreaming in her bed, and quiet moments resting with her mother, and quiet moments whispering to her sister, and loud moments living, bumping, chuckling, crying, laughing, stomping, and dancing, exulting with a genuine yay at the smallest delights, nuzzling her cats and Gucciing her dog, ensuring that she kept her eclipse glasses on while slivers of sun remained, and knowing how to live a little when it was time to stare at the celestial marvel of a total eclipse. June was marching for peace with members of the Buddhist Sangha who performed her funeral rites last week, joining her mother in that temple and recognizing a path that was honest about the universality of suffering and serious about the dignity of all sentient beings. Thinking about the lives of the horses that she rode at Rhythm Hollow Stables of Tara, thinking about the intentions of the composers whose music she played here with Matthew, right there with Matthew, and thinking about the use of her limbs in her breathing sequence in the pool with Rachel, Jennifer, and Renette, learning about loss and magic and sadness and joy and teenagerhood and crushes from the movies of Studio Ghibli, and recognizing those things in her own life and talking to her mother and to her sister about those things, and talking to her dad about a few of those things. And I cannot help but notice that this canvas contains nothing of what so many of us have had to manage in life: no pain, no betrayal, no violence, no bitterness, no Achilles heels, no shattered dreams and no broken promises, no dark days, no lost years, no abrupt endings beyond her own, now complete. It is awful to acknowledge that this life is now complete, but it is reassuring to realize that this is the completeness of a full and a happy heart, a heart that was never empty, a heart that was never wanting, and like Margaret Wise Brown's best-loved bunny in all the world, a heart that was warm and safe and warm. One thing that June did complete was the great narrative epic of her time, the Harry Potter series. She noticed that the characters lived their lives somewhere in between good and evil, and moved around in between those extremes as the circumstances changed. And she appreciated the great paradox of Horcruxes, taking life for a measure of immortality, and not always controlling where life is taken or where immortality lies. But there is one element of the story that feels especially relevant here, and it is the Mirror of Erised, which Harry encounters in his first year of wizarding school at Hogwarts. That mirror reflected back the deepest desires of the person who stood before it. The orphaned Harry looks in the mirror and sees his parents standing beside him, and spends long stretches of time in front of the mirror until the headmaster, Albus Dumbledore, persuades him of the fruitlessness of these actions. He tells Harry something that I have thought many times in the last 2 weeks. It does not do to dwell on dreams and to forget to live. I can only wonder what June would have seen if she gazed in the mirror of Erised, but I know now what I would see. But June would never have us sink into chasms of despair, longing, or bitterness. June loved being alive, and she would have us live, and to remember to live, because living takes remembering, and she would have us remember. As I approach the end of these remarks, I would like to become more direct. To all of the young people who are here today, please take a moment to think of how full this room is. There are people standing in the back, and there are people gathered outside. Look around. It's a lot of people. It's people who care about June, but it's also people who care about you. You live someplace where we care about you. We celebrate when we learn of your successes. We worry when we learn of your setbacks. We take pride when we learn of your willingness to keep trying. We want more of what makes you happy and less of what makes you sad. The things that interest you enrich our lives because you're interested in them. When we see you around town, we see you around school, around the neighborhood, and in the stores, we are so proud of who you are and of who you are becoming. In the time to come, when clouds roll in and you may feel alone, I hope that you will remember this room and this day. June Violet Cooper was loved, and so are you, very, very much, and maybe more than you realize. And in time, it is our hope that you will realize just how much. And among you all, let me specify one young person, Iris Isabel Cooper, my darling daughter. Iris, you made June into a sister, and that change gave her life more happiness and more meaning, and the chance to turn into your best friend and your protector. She talked to you and sang you songs when you were just in mommy's tummy. When you first learned to make funny faces, it was because her laughter was your reward. When you took your first steps, you walked into her arms while she cheered you on. And it was by your side that she went from reading to you to reading with you, because by her side you learned how. The two of you had wonderful days together that filled all of our hearts with love, and June will watch over you always, and will keep that love with you always. It will never leave your body, because you are where June placed so much of her love and her care. You will sense her presence when you need it most, and we will help each other every day to keep close to our Junie. And Bunting, it will always be this way. And now, by way of closing, I would like to be less direct. The last 2 weeks have been a chaotic blur, and at the same time, an immobilizing trap. Along with friends and family, people I barely glimpsed have left meals on our doorstep, letters in our mailbox, and flowers by our driveway. People I have never seen before have walked into our living room and embraced us. People I hardly know have put a hand on my shoulder and shared their own sorrows, so near to our own, and sometimes whispering the names of children and siblings and parents lost long ago. Shocks that still reverberate. In this calm place, then, let me set aside this task and these papers and finally focus on you, the you that was here with us yesterday, the you that is here with us today, the you that will be here with us tomorrow, the you who June lived and played and learned and walked and thought and spoke and died alongside. What a terrible thing to have lost, but what a beautiful thing for me to see.
Thank you, Jonathan. Kate, would you like to offer a poem?
We live in Bennington. We've already heard some Robert Frost today, but I've got more for you. This has always been one of my favorite poems. It's called After Apple Picking. Reading it once doesn't fully unfold what it has to say, so I recommend everybody go home and read it because it's beautiful. After Apple Picking by Robert Frost. My long, two-pointed ladder sticking through a tree toward heaven still. And there's a barrel that I didn't fill beside it. And there may be 2 or 3 apples I didn't pick upon some bough. But I am done with apple picking now. Essence of winter sleep is on the night. The scent of apples. I am drowsing off. I cannot rub the strangeness from my sight I got from looking through a pane of glass I skimmed this morning from the drinking trough and held against a world of hoary grass. It melted, and I let it fall and break. But I was well upon my way to sleep before it fell, and I could tell what form my dreaming was about to take. Magnified apples appear and disappear, stem end and blossom end, and every fleck of russet showing clear. My instep arch not only keeps the ache, it keeps the pressure of a ladder round. I feel the ladder sway as the boughs bend, and I keep hearing from the cellar bin the rumbling sound of load, unload of apples coming in. For I have had too much of apple picking. I am overtired of the great harvest I myself desired. There were 10,000 fruit to touch, cherish in hand, lift down and not let fall. For all that struck the earth, no matter if not bruised or spiked with stubble, went surely to the cider apple heap as of no worth. One can see what will trouble this sleep of mine, whatever sleep it is. Were he not gone, the woodchuck could say whether it's like his long sleep, as I describe its coming on, or just some human sleep.
From this point forward, we'll turn to offerings from June's beloved community, her teachers, her classmates, her piano teacher. And we turn to words that will be offered by her teachers, Natalie Harris and Christine McGrath.
Last weekend, a wise man shared with us that to get through a speech like this, the best thing to do is read from the paper and not look up. The complete opposite of what we teach the kids in the classroom when public speaking. June will be telling us that we are breaking our own rules. June brought us so much joy. We hope that this shares some of that joy with you.
In her short time with us, June taught us all lessons about resilience, curiosity, and the importance of cherishing the world around us. She reminded us that there is magic in the smallest of moments and wonder in the most ordinary of places. June taught us to slow down, to listen, and to appreciate the beauty that surrounds us each day. She saw the world through a lens of curiosity and exploration. Every recess, June could be seen playing in the long grass or the woods, making little crowns out of flowers from the field, playing an imaginary game with her classmates, or sitting on the seesaw with her latest book in hand. June found joy and wonder in every leaf, rock, and creature that crossed her path. She also loved to torment Christine with bugs and laugh at her screams as she tried to get her to hold them. It was usually followed with, "What's the problem, Mrs. McGrath? It's just a bug," to further screams by Mrs. McGrath.
June also taught us invaluable lessons about resilience, kindness, and the sheer wonder of discovering the world anew each day. June possessed a rare gift for empathy. She was the first to offer a comforting hand to a friend in need, to stand up against injustice on the playground, and to include those who felt left out. June believed strongly that no matter how big or small you are, you can make a big difference. In the spring, June wrote a little piece on ways to fight for justice. To quote her writing, "A way to fight for justice is by speaking up when you see something wrong. If we see someone being bullied or treated unfairly, we shouldn't just stand by. We can tell a teacher, talk to a parent, or try to help in any way we can." Sometimes just saying "that's not right" can make a big difference. Her compassion knew no bounds, and her actions spoke volumes about the kind person she was becoming.
Each morning, June would walk down the long hallway with a smile and a story to tell. Her stories were often about why she was late, which usually was something to do with her sister or maybe her dad getting up a little late. She always said it with a smile and a twinkle in her eye that indicated she wouldn't have been late if it was up to her. As June reached the end of the hallway, she would come and give both of us a big hug. If you were ever fortunate enough to receive one of June's hugs,
You know that her hugs were very tight and you could feel the connection she wanted to make. She loved the emotional response that came with her deep hugs. It was a way for her to start her day in feeling connected. In the mornings, as we gathered for the day, we often took some time to share stories, and we heard a lot of intricate stories of the Cooper household. But that thread came through and through again was how proud June was of her mom, dad, and sister Iris. June's stories were always from the heart, and the immense love that she had for her family always shone through.
June was a remarkable soul, wise beyond her years, with a sense of humor that could light up the classroom. She had a positive impact on everyone that had the privilege to be in her presence. Let us remember June with gratitude for the light she brought into our lives, and may we honor her memory by sharing laughter and kindness, just as June did every single day.
I'd like to invite Matt Edwards, June's piano teacher, who composed a piece for June that he'll share with us now. June's best friend, Annabelle, together with the Quinones family and June's classmates at Pine Cobble, will offer a song.
So as you may know, Annabelle loves June very much, and I know that everyone here loves June very much. And we were talking about a good way to honor her. We thought we would share with you a song. What makes it all? What makes a life worth living now? Makes the world go round. Is living without danger, but that ain't so. Love is so much more. It's comfort and it's healing for our souls. What makes the world? What makes the world? What makes the world? What makes it all? What makes it all? What makes a life worth living now? Love makes the world go round. On the future, I can tell you what it was. I could almost turn this world. What makes it all? What makes it all? What makes a life worth living? Love makes the world go round. Love makes the lost get found. Love makes the world go round.
You're now invited to join us in song by singing Amazing Grace together. The words are found on the back of your program. And if you wouldn't mind, please stand with us if you're able. And let's sing these 4 verses together. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieve. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first and snares. I have already come. 'Tis grace has brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. Amen. Please be seated.
We bring this memorial service to a close with a ritual drawing from Jewish custom and Buddhist practice. At a Jewish funeral, a community traditionally stands in two parallel lines facing each other, forming a passageway through which the immediate family walks, receiving words of comfort or silent condolence as they leave the graveside and return to the world. This walk marks a transformation. Having fulfilled the sacred obligation to honor their departed loved one, they pass through an embracing community to the next phase on their journey as mourners.
In the Buddhist tradition, the gesture of gasho, a placing of the palms of the hands together like so, accompanied by a bow, is a recognition of the sacred which resides within the other and the interconnectedness of all sentient beings. It is also a way of showing our gratitude and our respect. It symbolizes the realization that our lives are supported by innumerable causes and conditions. And at this time, we ask the Coopers to join us up here and behold the faces of the community that holds you as we offer a final benediction. Please join us. May the virtue and the power of this service penetrate throughout the world and together with all sentient beings. May we obtain the pass of consolation.
Kate wanted to offer some words of acknowledgement before we part.
Our family wishes to extend our heartfelt thanks to everyone who made this celebration come together today. Rabbi Jara Greenfield, Reverend Monshin Paul Naiman, and Pastor Bob Wiegers. June's piano teacher, Matt Edwards. Cynthia, Mike, best friend Annabelle and Sylvie Quinones. And June's beloved friends from Pine Cobble School and their families. June's second and third grade teachers, Christine McGrath and Natalie Harris. Friends who organized this event, event planner and organizer extraordinaire, Cynthia Quinones, Genevieve Plunkett, Elizabeth Fredlin, Kat Byers, Megan Randall, Megan Randall, Michelle Wiegers, Nadia Lukien, Sue Gundram, Ashley Amsden, Enrique and Christy Segura, Aymar Schlech, Allison Galambos, Christy Sampson, Gretchen Wells, Heidi Gaudreau, Cara D'Angelo, Manuel Noguera, Dave Dennison, Scott Berg, Jen McGatt, Kay Trafton, Callie Fishburne, and the faith community of the Second Congregational Church, as well as anyone we've unintentionally left off this list, but whose generosity has meant the world to us at this extremely difficult time of losing our dear, cherished daughter and sister, June Violet Cooper. Thank you to our family who've been present for us, even as you grieve the loss of one of your own. And to the wider community, you have showed up to hold us up when grief has completely swept us off our feet. We will never forget your love, generosity, and care, and we will carry it with us as a light inside us forever to share with others in our lives who need a hand and a candle in the darkness. Thank you.
Please rise and remain standing where you are for the moment. And clear a pathway through the center as Kate, Jonathan, and Iris make their way through to the back of the sanctuary. Will the congregation please be seated for a closing song? There will be refreshments in the social hall and in the courtyard if the weather holds. And we kindly ask that those who are seated by the screen, if you can hear my voice, see us on the screen in the hall, adjacent to this room, to assist the ushers in please moving the chairs and a few tables for those who may need a place to sit in the hall. And we also request, as we gather, to avoid congregating near the entrances and exits for safety's sake. Thank you all for coming and for being a blessing. Go in peace.